I'm very interested in TAFE and apprenticeships because I don't believe that everyone should be pushed on to further education in universities who are not academically minded, and it should be provided for them. Just going to, my concern is TAFE colleges are closing down and we're not providing enough TAFE colleges for anyone of any age. You did state that 1.5 billion, correct me if I'm wrong, comes from the federal government to the states.
Yeah.
What proof of accountability for that money is put onto the states to ensure that money is spent wisely, it is put into the TAFE colleges, and also, just up that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that question.
So, Senator, I mean, as I said, yes, around about 1.5 billion is provided per annum. Per annum
billion.
By the Commonwealth to the states and territories under the National Agreement on Skills and Workforce Development. The purpose of that funding is to allow the states to run the training system, and that includes where they allocate funding in terms of private or TAFE provision. The agreement is very broad. It gives the states broad flexibility to allocate that funding as they see fit. And so that balance or that mix of funding between TAFEs and private providers and other parts of the system sits with the states and territories. That's their full responsibility around how they...
So they don't answer to you at all with regards to it. I've heard concerns from people that they won't get paid, and whether this is from the states, the college will not get paid unless the students are passed. So the students are pulling the stunt on the teachers that they want passes before they get paid.
Yes, and Senator, arrangements differ from state to state. So different jurisdictions have different requirements in place around those sorts of things, Senator.
But don't you think that if the federal government's given $1.5 billion, that there has to be accountability?
So, Senator,
if people are being pushed through the system, and the minister was right about the vets bill to the Commonwealth, because it blew out to over $6 billion in 2015 over a matter of 6 years, from virtually nothing to a blowout. And there's not enough accountability for taxpayers' dollars. And that's what I'm asking. If we've got TAFE colleges closing down, that people can't go and get their education there and held to ransom, I think that 1.5 billion, it should be made accountable.
You raise a very, and I'll let the Ms. Williams answer from the policy perspective, but you actually raise a very good point. This was agreement that was negotiated in 2012, so under a former Labor government. We currently have a product, the Productivity Commission will be undertaking a review of this particular agreement and reporting back to government next year, and certainly the states and territories have input into that. But as a Commonwealth government, I'm currently working with skills ministers, and I have to say very productively. They've come on board, and certainly through the COAG process as well, and the chief ministers, to actually have a look at how we can improve the system for the reasons you've articulated.
Good. I'm pleased to hear that, because...
And I'll just let Ms Williams does want to just add something.
So I was just going to add, Senator, that the raft of reforms that the government brought through the budget that related to particularly the establishment of a National Skills Commission are designed to actually give the Commonwealth better sight over its investment into the system, and to give us a better way of looking at how we allocate that investment. So I think it's fair to say that the government has recognised this as an area where the Commonwealth needs to be more actively engaged and focused.
And certainly at the COAG meeting that was some months ago, the communique that was issued by First Ministers, so the Prime Minister, the Premiers, the Chief Ministers, did acknowledge that this, the vet system does need reform, and we all have the end goal, which is the student needs to get the best possible education to give them the qualification that industry actually requires.
Yeah. Just one thing on the apprenticeship scheme. You know how I am passionate about this, and I'm glad to see that the government took up my initiative with the apprenticeship scheme. Just to ask you about that, you started that. Under that scheme, the government pays 75% of the first year's wage, 50% of the second year, and 25% of the third. I understand that was rolled out in January of this year. 1,630 apprentices were taken up, and that was so successful that you rolled out another program in July. Was that all taken up, the same program?
The department will have the figures for you.
So Ms White will be able to...
Senator Linda White, Assistant Secretary, Workforce and Apprenticeships Industry Branch. As you said, Senator, round 1 was rolled out on the 1st of January. I can let you know that in that round 1,629 places were taken up. There are still a couple of places left in the Northern Territory. There was no time limit to when the places had to be taken up. We expect those will be taken up in due course.
It was under the stipulation, it was about apprenticeships in rural and regional Australia.
That's correct. All of the Northern Territory is regarded as rural and regional Australia, Senator.
So you've still got a couple of places left.
We've still got a couple of places in round 1 only in the Northern Territory.
But you are right. The majority were taken up. In fact, it was within a very short period of time.
3 weeks,
And
I understand.
because this is additional apprentices, as you know.
So you've rolled out the program again in
Yes,
July?
on the 1st of July we had phase 2 of the program, Senator. As at the 30th of September, 1,558 places had been taken up. We still have 11 in what I would regard as a due diligence check, where we are confirming that the arrangements are satisfactory, and there's still 63 places remaining on round 2. We have places for non-group training organisations only in the Northern Territory, so for direct employers only in the Northern Territory. We need to fill round 1 first. And in the second round, for group training organisations, so this is for a small employer who chooses to use a group training organisation, so the eligibility is based on the small organisation rather than the GTO. We still have some places available in Queensland and Tasmania, but for the other states, all places have been allocated.
Very successful program.
Will you consider rolling out another one? Because I do have businesses asking about putting on apprentices.
I mean, it is a pilot program, as you know.
Yep.
But certainly, based on the success of the first round, we did make a decision because it is additional apprentices, so it's over and above, or a new apprentice. The take-up was very good. The feedback we've received to date is very good, and in particular because it is concentrated, as you know, on rural and regional small businesses in Australia. Certainly the feedback and the evidence to date has been incredibly positive.
Just confirm with me, I've had a report that possibly a multinational company from Western Australia has taken up apprenticeships under this scheme.
I'm happy for the department.
You can take that on notice and get back to me.
I think that question did come to me
we will
previously, and if it is the organisation, I think it is, we looked into that and found that that was not true. They were actually found by the department to be ineligible.
So you can apply, but you've got to meet the eligibility requirements, and in that case, clearly not eligible.
I'm very happy about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Senator Hanson.